Welcome back to the exciting developments of the episode airing on Thursday, November 13th. Danny and Andre lingered at the edge of their decision, a precipice from which there was no easy return. Every choice before them carried the weight of possibility and the shadow of consequence. To move forward together would demand trust forged in fire, the willingness to compromise, and a surrender of control over paths both familiar and unknown. To part ways, to seek independent futures, was equally perilous, threatening the delicate web of alliances, loyalties, and expectations that surrounded them. Each potential step radiated outward, sending invisible ripples into the lives of friends, colleagues, and lovers alike. They could feel it in the subtle tension in the air, the taut stillness of those watching, the quiet anxiety radiating from corners of rooms and distant hallways. Their indecision was contagious, a pulse of uncertainty that hovered over the spaces around them, infecting hearts and minds with the silent pressure of impending change. Vernon moved like a shadow, his presence minimal, almost tentative, yet every motion carried the invisible weight of fear. The secret he carried was a living thing in his chest, coiling around his ribs and squeezing his lungs. If revealed, it could topple carefully constructed alliances, destroy trust, and unravel the fragile stability he had spent years maintaining. Every glance cast in his direction, every faint whisper, every movement from those around him was a potential threat, a harbinger of exposure. He considered strategies, evasions, contingency plans, yet none promised safety. Each action taken to hide the truth only heightened the tension, as if the secret itself were alive and aware, pushing him toward mistakes. And in the quietest moments, when the hum of distant traffic or the drip of a leaking faucet seemed amplified, Vernon imagined the world collapsing around him, dominoes toppling one after another, each piece a life, a relationship, a reputation shattered beyond repair. Nicole moved with deliberate grace, masking the storm within. Accepting the proposal from her former lover should have been a moment of triumph, a declaration of enduring connection, yet it was anything but simple. Beneath the polished exterior, anxiety throbbed in her veins like a hidden drum, a reminder that her choice carried consequences she could not yet fully measure. She sensed the latent risk in her acceptance, the unspoken potential for chaos lurking behind gestures of affection and promises of fidelity. Each glance, each pause in movement, each subtle tightening of her grip on the engagement ring was a measured negotiation with herself, the desire to appear composed clashing with the necessity of preparation for disruption. Her inner turmoil manifested subtly, a flicker in her eyes, a hesitation in her posture, enough to unsettle observers, hinting at a tension that could explode at any unpredictable moment. Kat and Smitty faced one another in a space charged with unease. The air between them was taut, almost vibratory, as though it had absorbed every grievance, misunderstanding, and unspoken accusation accumulated over weeks, months, perhaps years. Their proximity was a silent battleground, each gesture, each shift of weight, each blink carried significance. The confrontation was poised on the edge of revelation, the potential to uncover secrets that could pivot the entire narrative, reshaping alliances and loyalties. Kat's mind raced through possibilities, weighing honesty against self-preservation, while Smitty's calculated awareness mirrored hers, both recognizing that the wrong move could trigger a cascade of unintended consequences. The tension was psychological, a living organism in the room, expanding with every measured breath, threatening to engulf them entirely. Derek's fury burned quietly at first, a smoldering ember beneath a composed exterior, yet it demanded release. His conflict with a colleague, once manageable, had metastasized into a primal insistence on dominance, recognition, and retribution. Each slight, perceived or real, each unacknowledged effort, festered in his consciousness until it became unbearable. The air around him seemed to vibrate with the potential for eruption, every heartbeat was a drumroll, every movement a precursor to explosive confrontation. Derek's mind spun with scenarios, consequences, and tactical maneuvers, yet the rawness of emotion threatened to bypass logic entirely. Any lapse in control could result in physical aggression, professional catastrophe, or irrevocable personal damage. The pressure was cumulative, compounded by the awareness that his actions were observed, interpreted, and judged, even when the observers themselves were caught in their own webs of tension. The interwoven threads of these crises coalesced into a single, inescapable network of psychological strain. Danny and Andre's decision-making could not exist in isolation. Vernon's secrecy, Nicole's calculated anxiety, Kat and Smitty's confrontation, and Derek's burgeoning rage each influenced the others in unseen, unpredictable ways. The environment itself, the rooms they inhabited, the hallways between them, the shadows that seemed to stretch and shrink with their inner turbulence, acted as an amplifier, magnifying the smallest gestures into portentous signals. Each individual was both actor and audience, their choices observed and mirrored, reacted to and preempted, in a feedback loop of escalating tension. Danny's sense of responsibility weighed like a physical force. Every choice threatened to compromise the well-being of others, yet inaction was equally perilous, allowing circumstances to solidify in ways beyond her control. Andre, equally aware of the stakes, struggled to reconcile emotional attachment with rational foresight. Together, they teetered on the cusp of decision, each aware that the wrong step might fracture alliances, betray confidences, or ignite latent resentments. Their mutual understanding was fragile, built on assumption, and stretched to the limits by fear of unforeseen fallout. Vernon's internal calculus was merciless. Concealment required precision, yet each act of secrecy risked exposure. Confrontation demanded courage, yet promised immediate devastation. The duality of his predicament amplified his anxiety exponentially. Every sound, footsteps in the hall, a door creaking, a pen dropped on the floor, was interpreted as potential surveillance, potential threat. Vernon's world was a lattice of uncertainty, where the truth could erupt at any moment, toppling lives like precariously stacked blocks. Nicole's tension was a different, subtler force. The desire to maintain control, to appear unwaveringly composed, collided with the instinctive need to prepare for betrayal and disruption. Her interactions radiated an almost imperceptible charge, hints of forewarning to those who paid attention. Yet the more she concealed, the more the pressure mounted internally, threatening an eventual release that could destabilize not only her own plans but those around her. Kat and Smitty's standoff exemplified the precariousness of unspoken truths. Each second in proximity became a negotiation between transparency and self-preservation, every glance a test of the other's intentions. The potential for revelation hung between them, taut and invisible, capable of redirecting the narrative entirely. Their conflict was both psychological and moral, the choice between honesty and protection, confrontation and avoidance, with stakes that extended far beyond the immediate encounter. Derek's simmering anger acted as a catalyst within this ecosystem of tension. Each character's vulnerabilities, indecision, and secrets became potential triggers for escalation. The room itself seemed to hold its breath, anticipating the moment when restraint would break, when reason would yield to instinct, when decisions made in fear or fury would cascade through the network of relationships like a chain reaction. Derek's internal tempest was a microcosm of the collective pressure building among all the characters, an uncontrollable element threatening to ignite the surrounding fragility. The convergence of decisions, secrets, and emotional volatility created a landscape where certainty was impossible. Every choice, hesitation, glance, or action carried amplified consequence. Danny and Andre's deliberation, Vernon's secrecy, Nicole's veiled anxiety, Kat and Smitty's confrontation, and Derek's latent fury were interconnected, each amplifying the others in a complex choreography of tension. The psychological weight of potential revelation and miscalculation pressed upon each individual, constraining rational thought, and forcing instinctive, often extreme, reactions. Time itself seemed elastic under the strain. Moments stretched into eternities as each character processed overlapping crises. Danny and Andre calculated strategy and risk even as emotions threatened to overwhelm. Vernon evaluated every possibility of exposure, weighing secrecy against accountability. Nicole balanced projected composure against the ever-present undercurrent of anxiety. Kat and Smitty navigated the delicate tightrope of potential revelation, and Derek contained the wildfire of anger barely restrained. All existed in a suspended reality, where perception and consequence were intertwined, and where a single misstep could reverberate through the entire network of lives with unpredictable, catastrophic results. By the end of this tense equilibrium, the characters were pushed to the limits of endurance. Each secret, decision, and suppressed emotion had potential energy poised for release. The interwoven conflicts created a high-stakes psychological crucible, forcing extreme introspection, moral compromise, and reactive behavior. The stage was set for a dramatic sequence of choices and consequences, with outcomes that could irrevocably alter relationships, loyalties, and futures. In this moment, the characters' lives hung in the balance, a precarious mosaic of desire, fear, deception, and the inexorable pressure of circumstance.